listening to episode 160 of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Josh Zloof.
Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Hant, and welcome to Lifestyle Locker Radio, where we help you create an awesome life and lifestyle. From nutrition to fitness, mindfulness to peak performance, and relationships to money mindset, we bring you on an amazing journey to help you unleash your human potential.
Hey, so here's a little bit about our guest today, Josh Zloof. He's a co-founder and CEO of Sudden Coffee. He's passionate about more than just serving up a great cup of coffee. After launching several businesses that ended up in some success and even more failures, Josh knew he needed to find his why. This led him to founding Sudden Coffee on the idea of making 1 billion, yes, that's what it'd be, 1 billion people happy. Today, Sudden has served over 100,000 cups and counting of their single origin, specialty grade, and instant coffee that can be delivered right to your door. With over 3.3 million raised from investors, Josh and Sudden Coffee have been featured in the New York Times, Food and Wine, and GQ. So without further ado, let's see how Josh has created success in his life by modifying his lifestyle.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Lifestyle Locker Radio. We have a really unique, really fun guest today. His name is Josh, so it's not going to be hard to forget or remember a name here. So Josh, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Josh's business, as you heard in the bio, he's into something that I love. It's something I partake in every single day. Even the days I don't work out, I drink coffee. You know, this guy is a master. It's something that's so new and unique that I have a feeling this is going to be spread far and wide around the world in a not very long time. So, Josh, what's your story? I know coffee wasn't your first passion in life.
Yeah, totally. So I grew up in California and kind of grew up around this, startup ecosystem and stuff like that. And I just became obsessed at a young age with efficiency. I know it's like a really weird thing to get into, but how I could make a McDonald's more efficient. I was in a McDonald's with a really long line. This is when I was in high school, and I just became obsessed with that idea. And I spent the first all of college and my first couple of jobs just focused on that. I did industrial engineering. I was obsessed with how you could optimize things. I did consulting after school, and eventually I got really drawn to the restaurant space. I wanted to get into tech. And I started working on point of sales for restaurant systems. So I was working at Groupon on this product called Breadcrumb. And all of a sudden, I kind of had this awakening where I realized it's not about being really efficient with food. It's about hospitality. Like, how do you make people feel something through their food experience? It was a combination of working on that product. Also, started going to Burning Man and things like that just introed me to this non-efficiency part of life. And so I knew I wanted to do something around that, and I quit my job to do a startup. And I basically spent a year and a half working on idea after idea after idea, everything with this combination of hospitality meets operations meets tech. And eventually met my co-founder, and we started Sudden Coffee, which is the world's first specialty instant coffee. That was 4 years ago now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. So I want to go back. So we have like this very analytical mind that's ready to like break down. Like I know everybody can't see us at the moment, but he's got this whiteboard behind him with lots of names and numbers and all sorts of stuff. And you could tell that is into organization and having things work in the right way. So how do you go from a person like that to like break free from that for a second? You said go to Burning Man. Like, how does someone that's so analytical say, yeah, I'm just going to go to Burning Man? I've never been. I've only seen pictures and videos, and it looks wild, and I would love to go. So what made you do that? And then what was that experience like, and how did that help transform you to who you've become?
Totally. It's a great question. So I feel really lucky in that I have an older sister. She's 8 years older than me, and she's sort of always been the artist of the family. So when I was a kid, she would we'd always go to these really independent plays and performances, or like drum circles. And also, my dad was really creative, more on the tech side, but also just obsessed with kind of the idea, like, inventing things. And so I did consulting out of school. I left consulting, and I had this 3-month period, and my sister had been going to Burning Man for like 10 years. And she was like, hey, what are you doing this summer? You should go. And she took me to Burning Man, and I had been getting into going to music festivals at the time, so it kind of, I didn't know what I was getting into, luckily, and I was just like, cool, yeah, like I want to go see some DJ, take me to. And the thing that was really interesting is, so there are thousands of these camps, and people build everything from stages that can fit 10,000 people to these giant art cars or giant art structures. And for me at the time, someone was really analytical, and everything was a math equation, and how you could optimize like revenue and things like that. Walking through there, I remember having this feeling of like, oh my God, people are working on this stuff for free all year. Like, you couldn't just make this in a week. These people have been working on this stuff for many years, and they're brilliant people, and this is hard stuff to build, and they're just doing this for fun. And I was 25, and I was like, wow, that's a whole thing I should explore. And I think that for me was a moment of I guess just seeing that there was more out there and more that I could explore, and it really helped me get out of the boxing. I always had a box of, if you're doing a lot of work on something, it has to be work related, and it has to be about making money. And it really taught me, oh, you can put your heart and soul and time and energy and skills into something that's not necessarily this profit driven thing. And that was a really cool realization.
Yeah. And then how did that start to transform into this, this evolution of finding yourself, and then eventually now creating this coffee company, Sudden Coffee?
Yeah. So I think there were a few different moments. I think one of them was I was working on Breadcrumb, which is this point of sale product. And I remember, I was trying to build all these features that would help a restaurant turn tables faster. And this is a couple of years after that first Burning Man experience. And I remember meeting with the GM of this restaurant called Aviary, which is a top restaurant in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And he said, our goal is to predict what customers want before they ask for it. So if I see someone reaching for a jacket, I call them an Uber. I research my customers before they come into the restaurant to know what, if they just got a promotion, I want to congratulate them. And it really clicked for me how much that matters. Like, these very human experiences that are just putting in time and care matters a lot more than how many tables they can get through in a night. And that really resonated with me. And then about, a year later is when I was in this sort of startup mode. And it was kind of this amorphous process where I still wasn't ready to really listen to that. I was still kind of looking for, the right startup idea and things like that. And again, kind of going back. So that summer, I was like, I'd gone to Burning Man a few times, but I never actually built anything or made anything. And I said, I'm going to make something. I'm going to make a bar. I've never made a bar. I've never made anything with my hands. Let me try making a bar. I'm going to serve people drinks. It's going to be really cool. And I did that. And I'm someone that I consider myself a little bit shy. But when I was handing someone a drink, we would make smoothies. All of a sudden, people opened up to me. Like, they would talk to me about, what they were up to, their backstory and all this stuff. And it was a very real experience of exactly what that GM was talking about, where I saw, oh my God, yeah, like, this is like, if you serve someone food, there's a human connection. You can meet people. It makes them feel good. It makes you feel good. And I was just addicted to that. And I thought it was really cool. And so then after that, I started to really realize, oh, I like food. I like service. And also, so I think the inspiration for Sudden Coffee was that it's very limited. You have to be in New York, LA, Chicago to experience these awesome restaurants, and that sucks. Like
Yeah.
that's why do you have to go to this one place to get to experience aviary, and why can't we make that more accessible to people? And so I started working on different ideas in that space. Before Sudden, it was a burrito bowl idea with, we hired a Michelin star chef to make burrito bowls. And eventually, I met my co-founder, and he had a really similar revelation around how do you make craft coffee or craft experiences more accessible. And that was kind of the genesis.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. It's interesting how life experiences can, make us pivot and turn, and the direction you think you're so going in, it just kind of just makes a little U-turn or a right turn or a left turn, and you really truly I feel your passion or something what you absolutely love, and you're like, this is it, right? Did you have that moment when you figured when the coffee came into play?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, in that year and a half, there was a lot of self-doubt around, going from it wasn't always food. I tried different things. And at some point I ended up getting a coach for myself. And the biggest aha moment was discovering my values. And then once I figured out what my values were, and then I realized Sudden Coffee was aligned with all of my values, then I was like, this is it. There was a moment like 2 days into meeting my co-founder where I was like, this checks all the boxes for me. This is what I want to do.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you hired a life coach is what it was at that point, yeah. And they helped you, step back and get a 50,000-foot view of yourself, huh?
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. And in your bio, we talk about this thing called Black Swan Events. I want to get into this a little bit because we had a little pre-chat. We didn't use that word, but I think that's what we were talking about, right? These things that show up and they're really cool and good, but and finding out a way to create more of them, even though we may call them luck, right? Type of thing. So give us an idea, like where did you come up with this thing, Black Swan Events?
Yeah. I was looking back over the last few years at all of the big moments that both changed Sudden Coffee and also just changed my life. And there were lots of periods of 3 to 6 months where I was furiously working to I created a work plan, and I just sat at my desk and I was either making Excel models or trying to do marketing, and that stuff didn't really move the needle. But there were these few critical moments within Sudden that really took things to the next level. One of them was our second fundraise from this firm CRV. Another one was we found this technology that helps us do concentration. Another one was finding the right hires. And there are these like total accidental things that end up completely transforming your company or your life or whatever you're working on in an unpredictable way. And I think, a lot of the time people just say it's luck, like like something happened and I can't explain it. And it's hard because you can't repeat it. People ask me for advice on raising money, and I can't repeat what happened in our first fundraise, but I sort of figured out at least an idea or an approach for making these Black Swan events, these unpredictable events, happen more regularly, or at least in the way that you want them to. It's kind of the idea. I can go into it if you want.
Go.
I think I've figured out. So normally what you do is, or what a lot of folks do, and I kind of have like the engineering mindset. So I'll take a problem, I'll take a strategy, I'll come up with the strategy, and then break that into a work plan, and then I'll just go through step by step and tick things off the work plan, off your to-do list, because it feels good to cross things off. Mm-hmm. And I won't do the things that are exploratory. I won't go to the museum, or I won't go to a conference, because you can't predict if a conference is going to help. Instead, to get these events to happen, I realized that you need to get really clear on your strategy. So get really clear on the 3 things that you need to get done over the next quarter. That part is really important. And then do as much broadcasting as you can in a way that's unstructured, in a way that's not necessarily, you know, going through a to-do list. And so that means going to conferences, meeting with friends, and just talking about your idea. So always be talking about those 3 strategic things. So for us right now, we're raising another fundraising round. We're trying to find more coffee roasters to work with. And those are really the 2 things. So every time I meet someone, I'm like, we're trying to raise money and we are trying to meet more coffee roasters. And I put myself, instead of staying in the office at my laptop all the time, writing emails, how do I go into play? Like, how do I write a press release? How do I make a blog post that might get shared with more people? How do I, put myself in a room with connectors? And that was sort of, our very first, that fundraiser I talked about. We ended up, we got some good press. We were in the New York Times for Sudden Coffee, and we knew we were fundraising. And by chance, a venture capitalist read that article and was specifically looking for a caffeine-based subscription and happened to be in our city and sent us an email. And if we had not been looking for fundraising emails in that time, we would have missed it. But because we were clear on that strategy, we knew we needed that. We were like, okay, cool, we're on it, we're ready. We have the deck ready, we're ready to go, we can move. And so it was that combination. Whereas if I'm just emailing lots of venture capitalists one after another, that's a much slower way to generate the same thing.
Yeah, so it sounds like preparation and manifestation.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Manifestation is another great, I love that word. It's like, it is manifestation. Like, how do you make your will kind of just happen?
Yeah. And it's interesting, I've grown up in this world where, the idea of manifestation is real. I've had it since I'm a child. Like, my parents have given it to us and taught it to us. And then obviously the movie, like The Secret and all of these other types of things. But what I found in my personal life, and it's probably the same as what you're saying, is that when you are prepared, when you start to do the little things that, let's say you had to do a presentation to someone, like you're ready with the presentation, even though you may not even have that investor, like you said, ready, you were ready for it. But you're constantly doing the things that are going to be necessary to allow that process to fall into play.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And even, meeting my co-founder is a really great, similar example of this, where I did this values exercise a few months before. And if I had not done that, I would not have been ready to receive that. I met my co-founder, I would not have been ready to receive that, or because I didn't know what I wanted. And so deciding on what you want first so that you're ready is exactly that's exactly how I think about it.
Yeah. And so now let's fast forward. You've started the coffee company, you started Sudden Coffee. You've had all these investments, and you're doing it again, right? You're getting the next round, if you will. What is Sudden Coffee? I know it's an instant coffee. You said it's a gourmet coffee, I think is maybe the word you use. But give our listeners, because we have a very active audience, and I would bet that most of them, maybe not all of them, but most of them probably have a cup of coffee or more a day.
Yep, totally. So we invented specialty instant coffee. So specialty coffee, I affectionately call it hipster coffee, is trying to move to treat coffee a lot more like wine. So you're getting single origin coffees. You're getting them from specific farms. A coffee from Ethiopia might taste more floral or fruity, and a coffee from Colombia might taste more chocolatey. And usually you go to a cafe, like a Blue Bottle, and you'll get a pour over. And that's kind of how, up until Sudden, that's the way that you consume specialty coffee. And we basically took that coffee and figured out a way to make it a lot more accessible by making it instant. So we take specialty beans, we fully brew it, and then we concentrate and freeze dry it into a powder. So all you need to do is add water, and you can add hot or cold water, and you get a really good cup of specialty coffee. And in the last year, what's really changed for us is we've started to work with other coffee roasters. So we work with folks like Equator Coffee, Intelligentsia, Ritual Coffee. We're trying to get our first couple roasters in New York. And we basically take their coffees and convert it into instant coffee. So if you go to one of their cafes, if you ever see coffee in a test tube and it's instant coffee, that's something that we make.
Very cool.
Sudden Coffee.
Yeah, so I mean that's great for people that travel, that want a good cup of coffee, not have to worry about where am I getting it when I get off the plane or the train or whatever it may be. I have so many friends that are like when they get off their plane, like for a conference or something, they're like, where can we get, like that's their post on social media. Where can we get a good cup of coffee?
Totally. Yeah, it's perfect for that. We found a really good fit with folks who are really active and who are either entrepreneurs or people who work from home, or it's basically, we call it the second cup problem. So you're running around, you have a cup of coffee that you make at home in the morning, but between, when you're running to pick your kids up at 3 p.m., you can't make a pour over, and you're running from, you're independent, someone who runs a yoga studio is one of our customers. You're running from your yoga studio to the school and you need a quick cup of coffee, and all you got is a cup and some water, and you can stir it up, and you want something that's good. That's where we fit.
That's really great. And I'm thinking ahead of time. I was at oh God, where is I? This is when I used to be into CrossFit. I was at a CrossFit event, like right before the CrossFit Games, and I was talking to one of these nutrition companies. And they said, oh, they have, this, you get this whatever protein with this high fat in it and blah, 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 blah. And if you want to make it better, here's an instant coffee, pour in it to get another like boost of energy. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. And I'm like, where am I getting instant coffee? Like that's not a thing. But that's like another really cool thing. I think that, athletes that are listening can, if you want that awesome flavor and want to, right, want to add that to your regimen. It's really cool.
There's so many people who actually just mix it with a protein shake because you're not adding extra water, so it's even better than if you added a cup of coffee into a protein shake. It gets super watery, right? But with the powder, you can just put it in a blender. It's great.
There you go. Get a little jacked up. That's really wild. So I saw when I was looking at the website, you have like different roasts right now. You have like light and I think a medium or a dark roast. I don't remember what I saw. As far as caffeine levels, I know some people are into like where are the caffeine levels? Do they vary?
So for our coffee, it's about the same as a regular cup of coffee.
Okay.
And it honestly depends on the coffee beans you use. I think that's one of the misconceptions folks have is if medium roast or lighter roast or dark roast have more caffeine. And at the end of the day, coffee is a fruit, and depending on the breed of the beans and a lot of other factors, you're going to have different caffeine levels. And so it's really hard to get that exactly right. And that matters more than, the roast or things like that, which is really interesting.
That's wild. Well, that's time for everybody that, I was assuming there was like you just said, on average, there's got to be something, but I guess like anything else, you said it's a fruit, which most people don't. I don't even know if I knew that or not. Coffee bean, huh. But nonetheless, most of us are thinking like, oh, if I go get a XYZ, it's going to have this many grams, and I want more caffeine in the morning or whatever it may be. But it's not really necessary,
Yeah. I mean, it's. I always tell folks it's the same as a coffee you get at an Intelligentsia or an Equator. It's just in an instant form, and so within our coffees, they're all going to kind of vary a little bit, but it's still it'll give you the kick that you want if you want.
Yeah, very.
I'll tell you that.
Very cool. So where do you see, and I think this is cool for the entrepreneurs that we have listening. Your company is pretty young, right? We said 4 years.
Yep.
Right. How do you see it growing? How do you see it expanding? I know you said you're wanting to see it in more like small boutique type coffee shops where they have their own roasts in test tubes, right? In your tubes. So what else are you looking to do?
Yeah, I think the mission we have is we want to make specialty coffee more accessible to everyone. And so it's still that original mission. But we've in the last year with this pivot, we now, the goal would be, imagine going into a Whole Foods and there being an entirely new aisle that doesn't exist right now, and it's an instant coffee aisle. And in the same way that there are 50 different bags of beans that you can get now from all your favorite cafes, there's going to be a bunch of different instant coffees, all made by Sudden, but with the roaster's brand and the roaster's, sourced by the roaster from those farms. And you'll have a choice of different coffees to choose from. We want to take it, that's kind of the most simple version, but imagine now taking that to different countries. And, right now, roasted coffee beans, when you get high quality beans, they only last 2 weeks. And places like China are just waking up to coffee. And so because of Sudden, you can take a really great coffee that is roasted in San Francisco and send it to China or Japan or other places. And now, anyone anywhere can experience the craft that went into this coffee.
So you're not getting like a rancid bean that's going to head overseas. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's also, the story that learning about the coffee that goes with it, and all of those things that for me, I saw in those fine dining restaurants. How do you make that more affordable, more accessible, easier to transport so anyone can experience that? I think that still drives me at the end of the day.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And so now for, as you're scaling and growing, the important question for me to ask you, since this is, about your life and lifestyle at this point, where are you planning on ramping up taking care of yourself? What types of things are you looking to do so you can actually sustain, running a large company that's possibly multinational, like going to China and all these different things? So what are you in store for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been revisiting that recently. I think honestly, one of the biggest things as an entrepreneur or just someone without a boss is having a coach has been really great. So I still work with Michelle, who's my coach that I've had since that summer before Sudden Coffee. And it's a really great, she's helped keep me really accountable and make sure that I'm pushing onto the next goal all the time. The other things that, so I really believe in having a practice around having fun. And I think that's not what most entrepreneurs will say around, like, hey, if you want to go have drinks with a friend on Tuesday, just go do that. And, there's no need to get so hung up on being hyper productive all the time. And that can actually be a bad thing. And then I think the other big things for me, I've been reading a lot more, doing a lot of things that are feeding my mind in ways that are not directly related to work. So reading a lot of fiction, as an example, is something that, I'm starting to see how there are these influences that sort of float in your subconscious and then will play a part in what you're building or what you're doing. That I think at least a lot of folks I talk to never want to do, don't want to spend time looking at art or fiction. Like I have a lot of friends who say I only read nonfiction books or self-help books or things like that because that's the only thing that's useful. And I think I've been challenging a lot of those things in my life.
Cool. So if you could give 3 things that people could do to essentially unleash their human potential, have a better lifestyle, what 3 things would you tell someone to do to help guide them? Start these 3 things tomorrow. It'll make a big change in your life so you can follow your dreams and be happier, healthier, all the above.
Yeah. So I gave this some thought before this interview. So the 3 things that I recommend, the first one is invest in your own growth monetarily. I think that's something that not enough people do, which is whether it's a coach, a therapist, classes, be spending more money on your own growth than you would on your vacation or getting a new jacket or your new car. I think feed yourself because you'll get exponential returns off of learning new things. The second thing is really dial into your values. Figure out what your values are, not necessarily what your passions are. They're different things. And I feel like passions are things that change, but values really stay with you. And so go through some exercise around values. And the third one is make sure to have fun, which I said earlier, but do something fun daily or at least weekly, and don't beat yourself up about it, whether it's going out with friends, whether it's staying out late, whether it's sleeping in, something that is just purely rejuvenating. Do that and don't worry about it not being productive time. Just do that. Those are my three.
Very, very cool. And the best places for people to connect with you and Sudden Coffee are, give me a couple. We're going to have all of them in the show notes, but what's your favorite?
Yeah. Suddencoffee.com, obviously. You can also find us on Amazon. If you ever want to shoot me an email, it's Josh@Sudden Coffee, or you can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. And lastly, you'll be seeing us in more grocery stores. So grocery and coffee shops. So if you ever see coffee in a test tube, that's us. Try it out.
Very cool. So everybody, just so you can get all the details, all those social handles, his connections, you're going to head over to lifestylelocker.com/Sudden Coffee. Again, that's lifestylelocker.com/Sudden Coffee. All the details are there. And I know you're going to be hitting up his website now, since you're all, love coffee like myself, and test some of this stuff out, because if you've never had a good cup of coffee, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. Good coffee is very different than the stuff you get in an average store or a restaurant. So, Josh, dude, I appreciate you. This is great. I'm glad we got to talk about coffee, got to talk about life and your evolution and where you're going.
Thanks so much for having me. It was really great.
Hey everyone, I did hope you enjoyed that episode with Josh Zloof of Sudden Coffee. He's a really cool guy. We both love coffee, and we both are really into personal growth and being better. So I hope you did get something useful out of this episode. If not anything, hopefully you got over to his website and ordered yourself some of that awesome coffee. And, we're in 57 different countries now. Our podcast is in 57 different countries. So I want to thank you so much for being there, being an audience that cares about your health, and cares about unleashing your human potential. So if you do love what you're listening to and you haven't done it yet, please head over to iTunes, give us that 5-star review. You can head over to our website, lifestylelocker.com/Sudden Coffee. You can leave some comments there. You can even head over to our Facebook page or any of our social media, which will all be in the show notes down below. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I do appreciate you. And for those of you that have not yet, I know there are many of you who have not yet got the book Inside the Locker. It's a free ebook. If you just head over to lifestylelocker.com, you can either click the link at the top that says book, or you can get that drop down or the pop-up, that shows up, and you can just put your name and email in there, and we'll send it over to you PDF. It's free, and it's short and sweet, but it's something to hopefully inspire you to take some nice action in your life so you become healthier. Because I want you to be happy, healthy, have an amazing life. So remember, I'm Dr. Josh Hant. Thank you, and I'm out. Peace.